Hi, Mike.
Hey Rob, how's it going?
Well, it's hard to complain. It's 50 degrees here in February in Minnesota. So,
Well, that's
um,
good.
yeah, we're not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But for you, though, you're experiencing more of this astronomical river thing
Yeah,
again.
atmospheric river, I believe it's
Atmospheric
called.
river. I apologize.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's another storm coming through, so it's also 50 here in Southern California and
Oh,
raining a bit.
we're all walking around with no coats on because we just can't believe it's 50 degrees in February in Minnesota. So, Mike, we're
Yeah.
going to give just a minute or two for people to get logged on before
Okay.
we begin. So, but yeah, it's been one of those winters here that we're all kind of scratching our heads. So, there is no snow on the ground. It's 50 degrees and it's February.
Wow.
We're used to 3 feet of snow
Yeah.
and 0 degrees. So.
Well, we're getting more rain than usual, that's for sure. And
I seen that online. So, all right.
yeah.
Well, let's get this thing started here, Mike. If you can, there's going to be more and more people logging on.
Okay.
Um, but I want to first of all welcome everybody to our 12th episode of the Energy Bin Insights, the webinar series that explores solutions for PV repair, resale, recycling, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today. My name is Rob Van Demeltrot. I'm a senior account manager here at EnergyBin. We're an online business community for solar professionals who are committed to accelerating a robust and sustainable secondary market. Our members collaborate via trade, networking, and educational activities like this webinar. And these webinars are actually made possible by collaboration with industry professionals like yourself. So we appreciate it. Please join our EnergyBin community to help support these efforts, to buy, sell equipment on our safe trading platform, and to network with your industry peers. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel, to access these recordings of this episode and other EnergyBin Insight webinars. So today, a little background. Solar power is green technology, and that doesn't stop when panels are taken down. In the United States, an estimated 90% of uninstalled panels end up in landfills. And that's not all, that's not a green solution at all. We need to strive to build a circular solar economy through proper reuse and recycle. Reuse meaning many of these decommissioned panels have value and can be resold. Since actually 2020, used panels have represented only 7% of the total 5.5 million panels for sale on EnergyBin. That's about 375,000 panels. And for many companies, this has become an untapped revenue stream. Now, responsible recycling means that we're not throwing away valuable raw materials. By 2030, the National Renewable Energy Lab expects the U.S. to generate about $60 million in raw material recovery. And by 2050, the U.S. can profit over $2 billion. Today's presentation is all about R2 certification for solar panel reuse and recycling. Our guest speaker is Mike Easterbrook, Chief of Global Standards at Sustainable Electronics Recycling International, otherwise known as SERI. Welcome, Mike. Thank you for being here.
Hi Rob, thanks for having me.
Okay. Mike, can you give us an overview of SERI? Who are you and what do you do?
Sure. Um, So I have a little presentation here that I'm gonna jump into and give you a little bit of background information at SERI. So as you mentioned, we are the Sustainable Electronic Reuse International, a nonprofit organization, and our goal is electronic sustainability. Obviously, that's expanded into the realm of PV with the addition of Appendix G, but R2 certification is our flagship program with over 1,100 facilities certified in 42 countries. But we have many other programs like R2U, which is about educating individuals on best practices in electronics reuse and recycling, Rethink, which is about educating consumers on how to trade in or drop off your old or fix and repair your equipment. and many other programs. So that's who we are.
Mike, let me ask you a question. How did you get into this line of work? And what's your favorite part of this job?
Sure. So I got into this line of work in 2007 through a friend that I knew, and it was kind of by accident. Kind of fell in love with the industry, started doing regulatory compliance for a electronics reuse and recycling facility here in Southern California, and worked for a few companies in that space, some on the reuse side, some on the recycling side, helped companies get certified to ISO standards and R2 over the years as a consultant, worked with a certification body as an auditor, spent some time on the R2 technical advisory committee prior to joining the SERI team full time as R2 director in October 2022. So it's a little bit
Well,
about my background.
okay, fantastic. Now let me ask you this question. What prompted Siri to add solar panels to the R2 standard, and why is that important?
So just to give you a little background or history on how that came to be. Originally in when R2V3 was being developed between the years of 2015 and 2020, the R2 TAC was approached by members of the solar industry to add R2 at that time, which the R2 standard was undergoing a huge revision, and the R2 TAC felt that it wasn't an appropriate time to do it. But once R2V3 was published July of 2020. Shortly thereafter, in October or so of 2020, we were again approached by members of the solar industry, and basically they gave us the ability to consider whether or not it's appropriate to add into the R2 standard. So what we did is we took those members of the solar industry along with members of the R2 TAC and analyze the R2 standard to see whether or not solar panels in the R2 standard could be a fit. And they presented it to the R2 TAC, which stands for Technical Advisory Committee. Excuse me. I'm sorry for those that I used the acronym and didn't define it. But they decided that it was possible, and they went through the process of adding that to the R2 standard through the ANSI process. As a ANSI accredited standards developer, we have to do proper notification, then create, technical advisory committee members from that specific industry that are going to be experts in the area, put it out for public comment, and then really digest public comment, make sure that we're taking in account of all stakeholders, and then publish it. So that's where we're at now. As of Friday, the R2 standard with the addition of Appendix G has been published to the documents library on the R2 website.
Wow. So we're moving forward.
We are moving forward. Yes.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, Mike. Who serves on this TAC or this technical advisory board? Who's part of drafting all this together? Who's part of this group?
Sure. So when we went through the process of notifying ANSI, we added 9 new members to the technical advisory committee, each 3 from each of our distinct categories. So we have 3 stakeholder categories in order to achieve openness and balance across the groups. So there's customers, there's entities covered by the standards, which are usually the R2 certified facilities, but you don't need to be R2 to be in that space as an entity covered by the standard. Then customers of the entities covered by the standard, and the public interest regulatory groups. So we added 3 members from each of these categories during that time, and they, in conjunction with a lot of other members of the existing technical advisory committee, started to develop the PV draft, which turned into Appendix G. It was over 12 meetings from January 2021 to, or 2022, excuse me, to March 2023. And the legacy R2 technical advisory members were there to kind of help steer those from the PV industry on what's auditable, how to draft standard language, and how to make sure that we weren't repeating our efforts if it was existing elsewhere in the R2 standard.
Now that's a robust group that you have there. So what you mentioned something about the Appendix G. What
Yes.
what do you mean by?
So the way that the R2 standard is built is it's section 1 is core requirements, and there's 10 of them, and that's applicable to all R2 facilities. And then section 2 is process requirements, which are in the form of appendix or appendices. So the appendices only apply to facilities that are undertaking a process or activity. For instance, Appendix B is about data sanitization. So those that are doing logical sanitization, like data erasure of hard drives or physical destruction through shredding hard drives, would be certified to be. Now, Appendix G is the newest appendix, and that is solely about the management of PV modules for the R2 facility.
So tell us more about this testing requirements that qualifies. Tell us more about the testing requirements that qualifies modules for reuse and brokering.
Okay, let me back up and kind of go into like exactly what Appendix G kind of requires.
Okay, I was wondering, I didn't see that slide. Okay, here you go. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. So what we did with Appendix G is that we kind of made Appendix G applicable to the rest of the R2 standard, so that PV modules would be managed as electronic equipment and as an R2 controlled stream. Then we had specific things in there that were processes for evaluating the hazards related to handling PV modules, and then evaluating these modules for either reuse or recycling, and put in the specific requirements that a facility needs to do for reuse, recycling, or brokering of PV modules. We also added a additional R2 equipment categorization category specific to functioning PV modules, and that's assigned to those panels after they've been tested. Those that required repairs would be assigned one that notifies the buyer that some repairs were done, and those that didn't require repairs would be assigned a category that they were functional when tested. And we added a couple definitions for PV modules and solar cells as the focus material, which is the more kind of higher propensity for harm to human health and the environment than the other components of the PV module.
Okay, so back to that other question then. Tell me a little bit more about the testing that qualifies these modules for reuse or.
Sure, yeah, there's specific requirements within R2 for what kind of tests need to be done for PV modules. We didn't, the entire group, the PV drafting group, felt that going into too many test details could be fairly prescriptive. So they limited it to just having the design output, the original design output to what the panel is functioning at currently disclosed to the buyer. So if the panel originally intended to put out 400 watts and it's functioning at 200 watts, then it would be 50% of the original design level. However, the R2 reuse plan, which is for testing electronic equipment as well as PV modules, would require the facilities to note what types of tests they're conducting on PV modules if it was in addition to that, and also have processes for product safety plans to make sure that these modules were safe for reuse, not being recalled or any other types of condition which could cause safety concerns of the panels.
So what's next for Appendix G then? When can it be expected to be implemented? When can R2 facilities expect to, get guidance, receive guidance?
Sure. Yeah. So right now it was just published, and we're working with the certification bodies to revise the code of practices, which governs how much time is allotted for an audit. And we anticipate that that would be done probably around May of this year. And then the certification bodies would have a window of 60 to 90 days to implement those changes. We're also looking at putting together a auditor training in May and releasing guidance for R2 facilities. We have both the level 1, level 2 videos, which we've done for all the core and process requirements, getting underway, as well as any more specific guidance to be given soon. So at soonest, probably facilities would be able to certify to Appendix G if they wanted to, by Q3 or Q4. Those facilities that are handling PV modules but don't want to necessarily add Appendix G to their certification scope at this time would have a transition timeline of up till 2027. So they have some time in order to properly implement the controls under Appendix G.
Good. So let me ask you this question. Why does it matter to be R2 certified? Give us a big picture statement of how it benefits businesses and industry at large.
I think certifications help create a level playing field and know what type of consistency you're getting in terms of product quality. You're speaking a common language with others that are certified, so you know what type of material or equipment is coming in what condition. And I think it gives confidence to the customers that things are being done in a way to preserve the environment. Human health and safety are being taken into consideration when processing these PV modules. And I think, having the hierarchy of management strategies with reuse prioritized over recycling helps to advance sustainability and circular economy. So really having those that are certified lead the forefront and lead the charge in terms of proper management of these modules, I think is going to be something that will help push the industry forward.
Okay, let me ask you, I love what you're saying because you're talking about keeping the green industry green here. And we appreciate that. And so at this point, I want to move into some audience questions. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mike, for excellent information. There is a couple questions here that I did want to ask you that's coming in. Now, here's a question from Brian Penda. Current R2 V3 standards require a minimum 30-day warranty for used electronics sold in working conditions. What's the proper required warranty for used and refurbished solar panels? Is that maybe you can answer?
Yeah, so yes, under Appendix C, there is something called the product return plan, which is required for all R2 facilities to have for used electronic equipment that is sold as functional. It doesn't specify a 30-day period. It just says that a product return plan must be implemented that is appropriate for the material and the destination. So it's under Appendix G, those that are doing reuse of PV modules would still need to bring into play those Appendix C requirements for reuse, So yes, a product return plan would be necessary. However, it is not, there's not a 30-day requirement.
Okay.
It's specified within um Appendix C.
You know, and I want to thank everyone for all these questions. There's a lot of good questions. I think, Mike, looking at through some of these questions, you've answered many of them with your presentation. There was one question that jumped out at me from Mohammed Taib. How
Okay,
do you become R2 certified? What's the process for the PV recycler or the PV industry?
sure. Um, well, I would say first of all that they should attend the should I stop sharing my screen or keep it up? Right now
Um,
I went to the R2 standard and
oh,
where
gotcha.
it talked
Okay.
about the
No, you can
product
take it
return plan.
at this point.
Um, I would start with the intro to R2 webinar, which is available on our website and which we will be are in the process of adding how to implement Appendix G for solar panels into a R2 facility operation. There's tons of information on our website within the knowledge base on how to get certified, going through the implementation process steps. Some people choose to use a consultant, others choose to do it on their own. It's really a matter of your internal resources and money and the time factor of how long you want to use to get certified.
But you have the
Another
resources on your website, or we'll attach all your contact information on top of here to this presentation if you download it. Um, Again, looking at some of these questions are really asking questions about pricing. And if you do things like that, you know, when it comes to the resale value of a panel, please contact EnergyBin. We'd be more happy to engage with you, kind of show you how we approach that. But we've actually come to the end of our session today, Mike. I really want to thank you for sharing all series R2 standards. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Mike.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me, Ralph.
Yeah. Now, to learn more about SERI and the R2 certification program, visit the website sustainableelectronics.org. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.